My name is Niels Tode Winter and I'm the creator, editor and host of The Grant. After covering a solid chunk of the proposal timeline in my timeline series the last handful of weeks, I am now taking a break from that and have some guests on board on other issues. An area that I haven't touched upon yet is the university sector. It is a clear ambition of this initiative to cover also this area very well, and it will get its dedicated corner of the grant under the label Campus. The first episode to dig into the university and research sector will zoom in on the Brussels representation of the Norwegian University for Science and Technology, NTNU. Many universities throughout Europe have chosen to establish an office in Brussels to get closer to the EU R&D ecosystem, both decision makers, influencers, and collaboration partners of strategic importance for the university faculties. I have invited head of NTNU Brussels Office, Massimo Busuoli, into the virtual podcast studio to share with us why NTNU established an office in Brussels, how they use the representation strategically, what the university gets out of it, and finally, and not least, the crucial question of how they efficiently coordinate work with more than 1,000 kilometers apart and secure a strong connection to all corners of a big university. It is a fantastic talk that brings us right into the machine room of university EU funding strategics. Massimo and I had a quite long talk. Therefore, this episode has been divided into two parts. In this second half, we have a talk about how the office works practically. We learn about the key role the Brussels office has in NTNU's strategic lobby activities and shed light on how it helps the university in getting into a bunch of flagship Horizon Europe proposals with just the right consortia. Please enjoy. The Grand. Very important. Thanks for this. Now, let me just see here, Massimo. We need to move on to the function of the office of what you are doing there practically, so to say. So most offices from universities are doing lobbying and project facility. And then there's a different weight on which leg the weight is, but I get the sense that the lobbying part is the most important thing in relation to your work, since the EU, the project office, is based home and supports with a lot of the project facilitation itself. So we're going to start with the lobbying and to make sure we cover that, because I think that's the most important thing here. And then we will, towards the end, we will have a section on the project facilitation, how you support with that. You already revealed a little bit the synergies with the work and so on, that it spills over into that part also. But so let's just hit the lobby part, because that is influencing. I guess that's a very important part of what you do.
Yes, the lobbying part of the Brussels office is, of course, the preeminent focus of the office. But it must be also understood, in my opinion, that being a research organization in Brussels takes the lobby activities to a different level compared to interest takers. So in terms of lobby, the Brussels office of NTNU, and also according to my experience of 16 years in Brussels, we are of course working in lobbying to contribute in shaping the priorities. That's true. But the Brussels arena has changed a lot. It's changed a lot in terms of the listening capacity of the Commission to single stakeholders. The dynamics are really changed in the years. Today, the European Commission is not listening anymore to the single stakeholder. The European Commission listens to big groups, big alliances, and so on. And so also the way to do lobbying is changed, because you're not anymore targeting directly the Commission, but you have to make your work of lobbying toward the platforms, toward the institutions. And this changes also the nature of the work, because basically what you need to do first, what I already announced before, I mean, you need to position your colleagues to be active players in the relevant platforms where NTNU has a strategic interest to be, and to contribute in shaping the views and the strategies. So as you see, this strongly links with what we have discussed before, because somehow we position professors to be part of the people that are shaping the priorities, but at the same time, this positioning that is achieved also thanks to lobbying is also functional to increase our capability to get projects due to the networking effect that you have by having relevant people in platforms. And again, this links with the need to generate internal fora to exploit this positioning of the professor in relevant platform and maybe open opportunities for our colleagues home thanks to the networking that the professor is doing in the platform, because maybe the professor is asked simply, I'm going to do a proposal, would you like to join? I need this expertise. Maybe in the past, when the professor was basically alone in the platform, the answer would have been, sorry, this is not my expertise, so I cannot do it. Today, the hope is that the answer is, sorry, this is not my expertise, but if you give me a couple of days, I can check inside my community of researchers if anyone would like to open a dialogue with you. So this is the change we are trying to implement. And of course, the lobby aspect is very important because basically here, sometimes to get into relevant position in the platform, you need, of course, to promote and to make sure that your capability and expertise is noticed by the platform itself, by the governance itself, and so on. And this is where the Brussels office come into place, because we, of course, work to bake possibly the participation of NTNU in the best possible situation in the platform, but at the same time, we proactively provoke home to consider the participation in some of the platforms, because the strategy of participation into the platform is also linked to available resources. So our job is also to convince the faculties to invest personnel into the participation in relevant strategic partnerships. And so this is a lot of work in explaining what the partnership is about, explaining what could be the return, showcasing that there is critical mass of interest all over the university, and discussing about the possibility to set up an internal forum, which of course has some administrative costs. We don't have to forget that behind every initiative you build home, you have to put someone to coordinate it operatively. So again, if you want, there is the double lobby effect. One, positioning NTNU inside relevant initiative. The other one is lobbying internally NTNU to get it to invest on specific European-oriented activities.
Yeah, that's the so you that's so the lobby towards home, that's talking people into something that they don't really know if they want.
Exactly. So
they don't know yet that they want it, and you have to. So
it's
that's
a
the
double
that's
selling,
more convincing than
Niels.
lobbying.
That's the problem, you see.
Oh.
So
I am. You're preaching to the choir. I've been doing this a lot, speaking to people who haven't asked. Shouldn't you do this? And then convincing them about doing it. Yeah, and then at the same time working on a strategy in Brussels.
Exactly.
But maybe I'm just to explain less experienced listeners of the Brussels environment and how these things work. So what Massimo was talking about here is inferring the work programs for the Horizon Europe. They are strategic work programs, and you can get into the different. There are different forums, places where you can engage yourself, member-based sometimes, so on, member-based, or where you can engage yourself in the discussions and influence what comes into the actual work program in the end. And this to change, so obviously you need to engage yourself. You need to get into that place, and so I guess because this is what I did a lot when I started. I sort of worked out myself when I came to Brussels in 2010 because I was doing this, but I sort of autodidact out how to do this. But I guess you are doing it this way as well. So you are screening, you are finding out for a strategic priority, I guess, for a faculty or an institute, where do they need to go to get the highest impact of what they want. So I guess this is an analysis you make and a screening process you make to find out where to put in the knife and where it's easiest, the quickest fix, so to say, to get in there and get something to
it's
say.
totally correct. Normally, I try to first analyze first of all, what is the initiative where we can enter. One of our main targets at the moment is easy to identify, is to maximize our contribution and participation in the Horizon Europe strategic partnerships. Then what I did, I prepared an analysis and I met with the deans of the faculties, presenting the analysis, but already suggesting that according to understanding of NTNU, this, and this looks to be interesting to consider for participation. And then you get a feedback. And this is the moment that if the feedback is positive, is a sort of endorsement, because we don't have to forget that the decision-making process in university is a different world. Normally the word is okay, you have the mandate to do it. No, the word is we support it. So when you have the support, you can continue. That's the point. I came from a very top-down organization, and top-down, I was working with the president. So the president, I was proposing, he was saying, okay, go on, perfect, then go on. Here, you have to create consensus because universities are a bit more horizontal in terms of organization. So somehow, if you want something to succeed in the university world, you really need to have around you the support of the decision-making people, but not only, also of the scientific community. So you need really to align the vision. And it takes an enormous effort, as you can imagine, because for me it was very easy to put an idea on the table and get an okay go on. Now, takes more time to align the system on the vision, but if you have a system aligned on the vision, then everyone is engaged. And this is where the things are happening. So it's an interesting dynamic change, if you want, but the two models are both effective in different ways, if you want. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. It's just a matter of adapting you to the model you are facing with, confronting with. That's the point. So yes, you're right. Sometimes the Brussels office of NTNU is normally proactive in proposing strategic actions, but then you need to be convincing in selling correctly your vision and get the decision maker to say, oh, this is a good idea. Yes, we are ready to invest for it.
Yeah. The right hand, the king's right hand. You need to to whisper in the ear, so to say. You need to know how to put things to and in the way you're putting it. And that's not to say that they get bad surprises, so to say. You lure them into something that they don't want based on manipulated information. That's not the point. The point is that if these things about a complex Brussels environment within the field that they are, if that's not prepared and presented in a appetizing way, then it can simply put people off.
Yeah. And the Brussels dynamics, if you want, are really different than anywhere else. I mean, as I always say to my colleagues, in Brussels, if you have a chance, first enter, then understand if it is the chance for you, and if the worst case scenario, just exit. Normally, in the university system, there is more reflection time before deciding if to enter or not. And this for the Brussels dynamic is completely misleading because, of course, when there is an opportunity, everyone first enter. And when the opportunity is launched and you say, oh, it looks interesting, I would like to enter, the door is closed. So it's also a matter of trying to have the system changing a bit the mentality from reflective to active, somehow. And I have to tell you that this is step by step happening. I mean, NTNU has grown a lot in the 6 years of experience I have with the university. It's a very, very nice system, and I have very excellent colleagues around me.
What I know from a Nordic mentality, since I'm a Nordic myself, is that it might be a stubbornness in relation to one's own field, but there's always a certain flexibility and openness about understanding new ways that can help. So this sort of openness, that's what helps you a little bit.
Yeah, that's important. You know, I always joke with my colleagues because the typical answer when they don't want to take a direct decision is let's wait and see. And then, and then I say, sorry, but we have to change mentality. The answer should be let's enter and see. And in case we are not okay, we exit. That's
No.
so you know it's but I understand. I mean, and this is linked to this decision-making process. You know, the single person never takes a decision on behalf of the rest. So the let's wait and see is a way to let's see how our system is reacting toward what you are proposing before deciding if to go for it or not. But you know, the European dynamics are definitely not very done for this kind of approach. That's you need to be a bit more aggressive, if you pass me the term, which doesn't mean that you have to hit everyone, but you just have to be really, really proactive and ready to engage and
Determined,
take
yeah.
the risk. Determined, yeah.
Yeah, you need to if you want to have a first of all, if you want to enter these fora, and if you want to have a say, and if you want people to notice you and to respect you, and to get a group sort of let you into the group of influence and listening, then you need to be there and engage yourself
Yeah.
in this, because if you're just coming and without saying anything and not doing anything, then no, you don't. Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask something, and I forgot. Oh yeah, just for the listeners to understand, I always try to broaden a little, to zoom out a little bit to have everybody on board. So just for the listeners to understand, also myself. The when you have identified, let's just say you identified a specific partnership, a specific forum, that would be the perfect place to influence a specific part of the work program. Do you then facilitate? Is it you yourself that on behalf of the university sit there, or do you facilitate the entrance of a university professor or a EU person from the EU project officer? How does it work? Who are facilitating the entry to the forum?
Well, it depends on the nature of the initiative. For scientific-oriented initiatives like the strategic partnerships, normally the representative of NTNU is supposed to be a professor.
Okay.
So in this case, the professor is the person sitting at the table of the strategic partnership with the Brussels office as a possible backup when he cannot be in Brussels for specific meetings and so on. And the dialogue and collaboration in the way to work in the strategic partnership being nurtured and fulfilled in the related NTNU forum. So somehow you see we through the NTNU forum, somehow we help the professor also to already depict the NTNU positions with respect to the priorities or discussions that are happening in the forum, because basically normally you know the dynamics on how the shaping of priorities happens. At least in the strategic partnership, draft work programs are circulated among the participants, and we have to underline that the strategic partnership are open to everyone, so it's not a closed club, it's just a matter of applying to it. And then what happens in NTNU? The professor, which is the representative in the strategic partnership, with the collaboration of the Brussels office, circulates the document to the community of people participating in the forum, collecting the inputs, summarizing them, and then promoting them in the debate happening at European level on the way to finalize the priorities for the next round of calls. So this ensures, if you want, a more impactful input from our side, because somehow you add horizontality to the verticality of knowledge that the single representative could have in these kind of things. So somehow our input is multidisciplinary.
That's nice.
And reflect all the faculties. That's the way we try to work. Of course, sometimes we succeed, sometimes not. But I mean, at least we have the capability to do it, or we try to build the capability
Exactly. You
to
have
do
an
it.
organizational setup and logistics that sort of dress up the person that is sitting there. So is it you that is driving that process on behalf of the forum? Is it you that sort of shapes it up?
It is a joint effort. The fora have a specific structure. There is, if you want, a steering committee, which is composed by the Brussels office, one administrative support from the faculty, the professor, which is the chair of the internal forum, and a number of other professors in case our internal forum is shaped through working groups. So there is no one structure fits all. The forum are built to reflect the structure of the strategic partnerships. So for example, the food forum has a single ambassador, which is the professors that is in charge of it, but now it includes other ambassadors because the food forum of NTNU include a professor which is the coordinator for NTNU of the Norwegian participation in a research infrastructure related to food, the professor which is the national expert for the national table of food, and our professor which is sitting in the European Food Forum. So somehow we have three, we define them NTNU ambassadors, which are linked to three different initiatives which can benefit from the input from the community. In the construction sector, we have the professor which sits in the management board of the Build for People, but we have decided to generate a forum which is basically matching with the European Construction Technology Platform, which is the platform that is behind the Build for People strategic partnership. And so in this case, for example, we have 6 ambassadors, which are the professors, which are following the 6 working groups that are part of the European Construction Technology Platform. So somehow these professors are supposed, each one, to follow a specific thematic area in line with the thematic areas that are discussed in Europe. So you see, every time a forum is generated, we try to generate its structure to better reflect the way the European system is organized, so to have a direct mirroring, if you want, or a direct one-to-one relationship in order to shape our answer in the best possible way.
Good. You made it good. It's at least no,
we
but
try.
It's very difficult, and I know that some universities struggle a little bit, even though they have organizational setup that can swallow it, so to say, but where the organization around it, it's someone lacks because things falls in between the crack, and then they start to get too reliant on individual professors who mostly focused on their own work, and to sort of get them engaged on the European level, and so that it can sometimes be very tricky if you don't have a setup that match the need in Brussels. But this forum approach, it's a good way of doing it. So it's you heard it here in the grant. any university dealing with these things, try to at least these are very good advice for you out there, because I know there are many university offices in Brussels. Anything else on here? I put here in the bullets on annual map and the timelines, but I guess that's mapping the lobby process. That's we have covered it. Yeah, because that's what you do when you sit and find out the where to go.
No, I mean, if you want related to the lobbying process, what I can add is that of course we do also as a Brussels office a monitoring of the legislative process, and we try to identify the communications from the Commission which are of relevance for NTNU, which can have an impact for the NTNU system. So worth to say the Green Deal package is something that is of high interest for us, including all its own internal policies, the Farm to Fork, rather than the Fit for 55 package, rather than even recently the communication about the health data system organization, which looks to be a technical thing, but has a lot of impact also for research institutes. So we try somehow to one of the work that the Brussels office does, and that I hope to expand in the future when, if possibly, the office will have more permanent personnel in its staff, is the capability to anticipate by reading what is behind the communications what's going to happen in terms of initiatives launched by the Commission. Because if you are capable to interpret correctly what is written in the communication, sometimes you get hints about where the Commission is going.
Yeah, the Commission is tricky with these things. Sometimes you really look for the devil is in the detail.
Yeah, but you know, you told me about the lobby aspect. No, this is another side of the lobbying, because somehow you read the communication, you find some interesting points. Then what you do, you try to get an appointment or a discussion with someone in the Commission related to the communication to ask clarifications. What do you mean here? What you have in mind there? What are you going to do there? And sometimes you understand that something is happening. I make you an example of one success that I got in my past life, which is still something I love to tell, because I think is a typical successful lobby work, long-term lobby work. In 2007, the European Commission have launched the European Institute of Technology. With its kicks. They launched the first kicks, and then in the second round of kicks, there were rumors about the establishment of a kick food or a kick raw material. Raw material were of high interest of Enea at the time. I was working in Enea. And then I said I of course went back home, I discussed with the colleagues, and I asked the unit responsible for the raw material sector if they would have been interested in engaging in a collaboration to try to generate a national proposal, a national group that could have become a co-location center for Italy. And so we started 2 years and a half in advance, okay? And the work of the Brussels office has been, we proposed the strategy. We said, okay, to achieve this, we propose to enter the European Innovation Partnership on raw material and try to put our president in the management board at the orders of the commissioner. And we succeeded. So Enea was sitting in the board. But why we did it? Not because of the chair, but because this helped to qualify Enea as the national reference for Italy for the raw material sector at European level. And this avoided anyone else to build a competitive initiative towards the call for raw materials. Okay? And so we had a unique proposal from Italy, which was the first time in history that Italy came into a proposal for a kick as a single consortium. Because normally when there is a kick call, there are at least 3 different Italian consortiums in 3 competitive different proposals. So, and at the same time, we lobbied on the other side in Brussels with the various consortia that were raising. And finally, we found the one we wanted to go in, and they started selling our consortium as a national consortium, done in this and so on, and they got us on board. And today, if you look in the map of the kick raw material, you will spot that there is a co-location center in Rome, which is the one managed by Enea. So, but this took 2 years and a half. And this is lobby. I'm talking about lobby. This is lobby.
Well done.
Strategic lobby. So sometimes lobby is reading the communication, understanding what's going to happen, taking the risk, because at the time we started working, it was not sure that the kick or raw material would have been launched. But when it was launched, we were very happy because we were already in a very good shape for the Italian system.
Well done. It's well done. But I would say also, you mentioned talk to the Commission, and I can recommend any listeners who are doing this kind of work, the ones who are not already doing it as a strategy, try to get like personal connections. The Commission is actually, most people are very kind, the Commission officers, and I, on a regular basis, I have my sort of entries, persons that has known me for many years, and they talk openly about, they don't talk in codes or Commission language. They say it like it is. What is written in between the lines in the official documents, they say directly. And this it's just, if you get this kind of if you do your footwork, so to say, to networking with concrete people that sits in the right places, you get the information you need to take steps accordingly that fits for your stakeholders that you work. That's my experience anyways.
Totally agree with you, Niels. And the Commission people are open and available. So
Yeah, and actually, it's something. It surprised me when I came to Brussels and I started to talk to how open they are, and it's not just okay. So you start to talk to them, but it's not just that. It's over the years. The impression I get is that they are very happy when you approach with stakeholders. I've been, for instance, facilitating for some very large companies within wind industry for a specific case, and this person came and had a meeting with these three companies, and it was very open about what the priorities in concrete strategic call areas and where they might be able to change and turn things a little bit around or change the wording to fit and so on and so forth. It's on that level. They are, of course, these things needs to go through the whole system of program committee and all these things, but the wording, the text that goes into what the commission is proposing, it's not always so complex. Of course, you need the whole system that we have that Massimo has rolled out. That stands. You have all these forums you need to engage to because there's an official flow of information that the Commission has supported to set up for them to get it structured, the input. But they do take these individual calls if you reach out. Some of them, at least.
most of them, I would like to say. No, there is this misleading myth that the Commission is hard to reach and very far.
Yeah.
It's totally wrong. Totally wrong.
So thank you, the EU Commission. Do a good job.
So the advertisement message has been done. No,
nah, you know what? It's the Commission is doing a good job.
Of course.
Now. We are moving towards, we have more than an hour in now, so we should start wrap it up. But we are supposed to talk about research, so the project facilitation itself, and we covered it a little bit, say there's a synergy effect from the work you do, that when you get into this fora, you also get into, just explain shortly to the listeners, when you get into these fora, these people in these fora, they are also doing EU projects within that same area. And of course, if you sit and talk about specific strategic call text, everybody around the table with an interest in that would say, should we do something together on this? That's just how things work. It's just basic human psychology. So of course, when you get into these fora, the spin-off is that you get involved in some of the most promising consortia for those specific calls. Doesn't mean you're sure to get the funding, but you at least get into the flagship consortia. So I guess that's what you tried to say earlier, that it's sort of from your point of view and your chair, the two things are sort of interconnected. Is that correctly understood?
Yes. You wrap up in a very good way. I think I honestly do not have anything to add on your perfect resume of the situation in this case. So.
But this is to say, and this is what I would maybe invite you on board for a second episode, but then I would like to invite like you to see if you could get a person from back home, from your EU department, that do the more concrete activities on the project facilitation, because I've been sitting on that side of the table myself, which is, so you have, of course, the synergy effects from the lobbying, but the actual, when you look at project facilitation isolated, you have all the activities with brokerage events, with looking for consortia, with making a strategy with a team and sit with them, and that's not, you don't dig into that detail. That's what I understand. So you have people back home that knows in more detail the individual institutes and teams from this point of view. And is that correct?
Yeah, partly. I mean, let's say that there is a synergy in this. When, for example, we decide to go for brokerage events to generate project collaboration, there is, of course, a bilateral talk between the Brussels office and the internal EU support system, and we create and we generate a joint action on this for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that, again, promotion, representation, and lobby are the top priorities for the Brussels office. What does this mean? For example, some years ago, the Brussels office of NTNU, in collaboration with FU Berlin and the Alianza for Universidades, which are two offices representing university in Brussels, decided to propose to the other offices the generation of a network called UniLion, University Informal Liaison Offices Network, which today is a network of more than 50 different offices operating in Brussels, representing universities, that basically is not a representation network in terms of lobby effect, but is a group of colleagues which are open to collaborate, which are open to dialogue, which are open to exchange information, but which are also open to try to find ways to get our respective researchers to collaborate in the calls to come. Through Unilion, you can, for example, generate a bilateral talk with any of the universities and launch an internal brokerage event. And this is where the complementarity between the Brussels office and our EU support system comes into field. Maybe the Brussels office proposing to do a brokerage event, and of course the collaboration with the EU support system help to find the necessary professors at NTNU that are interested to participate in a brokerage event to be done with another university. So somehow, if you want, this project support is there, even if I tell you there is a slight overlapping between the activities of the Brussels office and the activities of the EU support system, which in any case is the one having the full responsibility for the pre-award and post-award phases of the project preparation. In any case, being part of a network including 170 universities for us is easy to provide partners, it's easy to provide bilateral dialogue opportunities, it's easy to provide or scout invitations to project participation, which is something that is happening. On this point, for example, the Brussels office itself has been the spark for about 7 to 8 funded proposals for NTNU. Meaning that we have been asked to put an NTNU professor in an ongoing consortium in the making.
Indeed.
And if you want a direct return of investment, no, because without the spark of the Brussels office, the money wouldn't have been there. And I estimated that the amount of money collected by NTNU, thanks to this opportunity generated by the spark of the Brussels office, has been around 6 to 7 million euros, which basically is a return of investment of the investment that NTNU has done in the office in the last 6 years, which is higher than the money spent. So somehow, if you want, it's a sort of justification in life of my work, direct justification out of the all indirect return for the image, visibility, and the rest that we have discussed today, in the talk.
But what it would be a lovely continuation to have to make an episode where we sit with this, because you also have the institutes where it's not spin-off, where they are targeted. They know they have a very strong technology, and they are focused on developing a proposal around that and how that process runs, and are you and how the EU office, are you involved in those kind of things when there comes a push from home to generate a consortium?
It happens. From time to time. I'm invited in preparatory meetings to give advice, to provide opinion, because I'm also a project evaluator for the Commission. I did myself projects. I have experience in writing proposals. So even if I'm not here to read the proposal or to write proposals for NTNU, because it would be too detailed in terms of work. Of course, I can try to give overall advice on the way to do things and so on. So recently, for example, I collaborated a lot with a professor in establishing and facilitating the engagement of NTNU in the proposal for the KIC culture and creative industry. And today we are part of the winning consortium. Recently, I personally provoked NTNU to be part of a proposal for the ERA hubs in the Widera call. And today we are one of the two selected proposals for this pilot call to test the ERA hub model. So sometime, I take the freedom to enter where I see that there are possibilities which, in my opinion, have not been spotted by the system itself. So trying to wake up the system on opportunities which look to be of interest. But my attempt is, when I do this, is mostly on things which are of institutional level and not vertical technical level. On this, I wait for the system to call me inside.
So would it make sense to take such an episode with you and another colleague, or even a third, I don't know, with a talk about this? Because I know many people would be interested hearing it out there.
Will be a pleasure. Maybe I can check internally if a couple of EU advisors from two different faculties would like to be part of the next podcast you're proposing. So to get two experiences from maybe two of the largest faculties of the university.
Sure.
That could be an option. And in this case, I can be in the background, but probably in this case, it's better for you to let them talk about their way of working, the experience, and also the dynamics that they live inside each of the faculties, which I know are quite peculiar. So that could be interesting.
Good.
Anyhow.
That's a decision. Massimo, before we wrap it up, I always have a segment in all my podcast episodes that I call the toughest challenge. So for you, the toughest challenge as a representative in Brussels for university, what is the first thing that come to mind? Is it the distance? Is it the engaging people? What?
Well, the toughest challenge you can have when you are so distant from your organization and you have not a daily link with it because you are far, is exactly how to keep your activities, your office, and your profile in their heart. Because the risk of forgetting you is very high, not because they don't want you, but because simply they are so engaged in their daily engagement that, of course, far from eyes, far from heart, said something. So the real difficulty here is to remain visible, not only in Brussels, which is your job, but also internally to your organization, which is the way for you to continue working in Brussels. On the other side, the rest is done by your capability to remain self-thinker and independent, because again, if you wait for the home system to call you and engage you in specific activities, well, you will have quite a relaxed life in Brussels, I suspect, So that's how it is. So these are the two challenges. One, remain visible. Two, be proactive and appealing to keep the attention.
I am actually preparing a series on that I have chosen to call the Brussels Office. Because I've been exactly in this position myself when I came to Brussels in 2010, as more or less one person and a stagiaire, and then having to, now you go, you need to find proposals for the offshore wind in Denmark, So
that's it.
It's exactly what you said.
Please.
So this.
Yeah, and also forget to have clear inputs for your job. You have to create your own inputs. That's
You
the
need to
point.
be proactive and
So these are the biggest
creative.
challenges. And if you want to do this job, in case you are considered to become a representative of a research organization or of any organization in Brussels, remember you have to be very good in managing and imagining your activities. That's a very important thing.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for coming around the virtual podcast office.
Thank you for this interesting chat, and also for the invitation to your very nice initiative. I like it very much.
Thanks.
So, congratulations.
Thank you a lot. And I think people are so kind when I reach out. I only have a few people who didn't react or never came back to me after the first interview. But people in general is very kind and love that someone has started a podcast initiative on this. So I'm faring quite well these days with the people getting on board, so that's nice. And it's always interesting talks, no matter who I talk to. Actually, it's very nice. And I hope that we will have on a regular basis. You will have time to do this with me, because there are a lot of things to talk about. So maybe when I do the Brussels office, when I do the Brussels office series, I will get you in for for different sections.
Please feel free to engage me. It would be a pleasure. Has been very, very interesting, and a new experience for me. I think it's the first podcast that I did.
Yeah, you did
life.
so well.
Yeah.
Well, Massimo, congratulations.
Okay. Can I stop the recording,
No.
Niels? Now I can stop the recording. No.
Just a
okay.
second.
Keep it. Okay.
So no, thank you, Massimo, for joining. I'm just gonna make the outro here. So for all your listeners, thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you're enjoying my initiative. As I keep saying in the end of these programs, I have a website, thegrant.eu. Go check it out, and by all means, subscribe to the email list. This is how I best build this initiative. So if you like what I do, the best thing you can do for me is to subscribe to the email. I'm never going to spam you. You will get an email when an episode is released. That's all. It will never cost you a single eurocent, this podcast or connecting to me by email. It's simply a way of growing the initiative on the community that listens to it. So that's all. I also have just recently created a hub section, a resource section on the website. So there I share links to from the individual programs. So you will have a link here to NTNU's website, so you can yourself, if you're curious, see about the university we talked about here. And I don't think we talked about anything else here that would be linked up to. But anyways, on the hub site, you also have links to the participants portal, the brokerage sites, and so on. So I try to gather things there. Thanks again for listening to the end. Thanks again to you, Massimo, and hope you enjoy this initiative. Bye.
Bye.
The Grant. You have been listening to The Grant, the EU funding podcast.